So let's start with one of your earliest experiences when you were 20 years old, I believe, and serving in the Israeli army in Gaza. What happened there?
I was in the Israeli army. I was an officer, a paratrooper, and we just had to show presence in Jabalia, it's a refugee camp. And I had 8 soldiers with me, just walking through these super narrow streets. And at one point, we found ourselves surrounded by hundreds of young Palestinian Gazan children between 8 or probably 12 and 20 or something. And they were closing on us. And the kids from the back would push on the kids on the front, so they were closing on us. I put my soldiers, all 8 of them, in a circle with our guns pointing out. And I got the sense that as they're closing on us, that I am facing in most awful decision-making. Am I going to shoot 10-year-old, 15 years old, or are going to be eaten alive? The similar kind of I would start leaving my body, and I imagine myself being one of them closing on me because I felt we shouldn't be there. So as they were getting closer, and it was life and death for them and me, I kind of left my body, and from above, from very high above, I told myself, you have 2 fucked up choices. You're either going to shoot into 10-year-old, or you're going to be eaten alive. Meanwhile, I can hear the rescue going around. I have to go all around because of the narrow streets to get to us, that I requested for them to rescue us, to pick us up. So I left my body, and I said, with these 2 fucked up choices, shooting into this young crowd or being eaten alive, I have to leave the country. I cannot serve my country. And I was a lieutenant in the paratrooper. And at the last second, the rescue got to us and rescue us. So I didn't need neither to shoot them, not to die there. But this experience from above, that I need to leave the country, stayed with me in very, very strong way. And I tried to leave the country right after my army, and I went to the Merchant Marines. I went to Africa, I went to Europe, I went all around the world. And so finally I left at 1979 at 29 years old. But this came all from this out-of-body, above experience, that these 2 choices are truly fucked up, and I must leave my homeland.
That is intense. And you were 20 years old at the time?
20 years old, yeah.
And so you sort of gained a higher perspective, so to speak, right? Did that change the course of your life, would you say?
Say it again?
Did that then change the course of your life?
It did. It did. And it was so clear what I saw from above, that it was not just a, should I do that? Should I do that? It was reflecting on the junction that I don't want to do good or bad decision. I should not stand in the junction. And this was clear from the perspective above, that it's a fucked up junction.
It seems like these moments of stepping outside of yourself have followed you through your life. You mentioned another experience when you were working at sea.
This was so different, but it was also a truly out-of-body experience. After the military 2 days before my discharge, actually, I was allowed to go on the Merchant Marines, and I just loved to be on the ocean and work on the deck. And I took a course of officers, but it was really just getting the hell out of the country. And after going to Europe a few times through Gibraltar, gorgeous Mediterranean, and then to the ocean, and then to Northern Europe, it was my last trip back to the Haifa port. And there was a long animosity between me and the bosun. The bosun is a boss of the, what do you call it, the deck.
Mm-hmm.
So we got into a fight on the front deck,
Mm-hmm.
and there was kind of ropes around us. It felt like a movie or a terrible musical or something. And we got into a fight because I knew if I lose it really badly, I may end up in the water, and ending up in the water in the Mediterranean with this huge cargo ship, this would be the end of me. So I gave it all not to be thrown out of the deck into the water. And then I left my body as I was fighting and doing all that, and saw these two dumb, stupid people, this tall young guy and this short Moroccan Jew guy, fighting on the front deck. And I told myself, it must be so stupid. So I'm fighting, and getting hit and hitting back and avoiding being thrown up. He was so strong, short and strong, and cursing me and the whole stuff. But my body, my eyesight was just there in the deck, really far back on the boat and high. So I saw this little two dots fighting, and it was like I was fighting for my life on the deck, but also seeing the stupidity of the situation, the kind of what's the fuck moment of this two little thing fighting for what? Just because they're different culture, or just because it's a different rank within the Israeli society. And I ended up with a broken nose. He ended up with a shut eye, and neither of us was ready to go to help the boat when we go to the Haifa port. But it stayed with me, kind of how sometimes I'm in the situation and how I'm lifting myself up to see, what does it look like from above? How dumb is this? Two people in the front of the ship fighting for what? For nothing? So kind of the smallness of the situation, even though one part, like with Gaza, my life were on the line, but from above, it's like this time it was like, how dumb and stupid and it is. So it was kind of perspective.
Yeah, so that's such a powerful metaphor for life, isn't it? How we get caught up in these struggles. Yeah. But from a higher perspective, they just seem so futile.
Yeah. And I have some other kind of situations like that, like when we cross the Suez Canal, and everybody, the Egyptian army was bombing the bridge, and Israelis were just being killed. I stopped there and refused to run, and just took my middle finger and point like that, supposedly at God, refused to run. And I saw myself also from above, kind of refusing to run. Like, what's the fuck? Run for your life. And I just refused to run. So I was there seeing the bombing around me, things that are knowing somewhere in my head that I'm risking my life, and also seeing from above how little, again, I was. Above is what you mentioned, is perspective. It's like, give me the bigger picture so I'm not just caught with my 2 feet on the ground and my head being so small, focus so little.
You flatlined as well for 60 seconds. What was that experience like?
You know, when I got my heart attack years later, I flatlined, but I'm God. You mentioned it, making me upset because I didn't see anything from above. And when my wife told me that I flatlined for 92 seconds, I was so upset because it was such a missed opportunity to leave my body, as so many people say, and to see the thing from above or to see God or whatever it is. So this was a lost opportunity. You're getting me upset even reminding me of that.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was disappointed. So I told my wife, I want she, I want to go back. I want to try it again, to give it another chance. God, she was upset. He said, "Don't get upset. You're going to get another heart attack." I said, "That's what I want. I want to flatline again and to see God."
So
What
it
a
was
waste of
frustrating,
opportunity.
especially since you had such vivid experiences in the past.
Yeah, yeah. You get me upset remembering it even.
I'm sorry. After everything you've been through, do you think these out-of-body experiences have had a long-term influence on your spiritual understanding?
Not so much about my spiritual understanding, but perhaps my existential understanding and kind of not having a full out of body experience, but seeing context. Like my whole teaching in ethics is about context. So, kind of, what does it look from above? So, I would say, is it ethical to be naked with a client? It's a big picture. So, the small picture say, "Oh hell no." For therapists to be naked with a client, but the big picture is like what happened to me in the small town of Sonoma when I left the shower in the only gym in town and I saw a client of mine also naked. So it's kind of
Inevitably, in the reality of life, there are things that are out of your control.
it's not so much out of control for me. It's out of control, but it's more what's the context.
Mm.
So I'm a context kind of a guy.
Mm.
So I ask hard questions. Is it okay for a therapist to kill the clients? And then I have a case in Philadelphia, I think, when a psychiatrist killed a client who came to the clinic with a gun. So it's like, for me, the out of body experience that I have only these two profound experiences, but it's a way of life to look at situations from above. It kind of taught me
Mm.
how not just to stay here, you and I, what I can see, but move above.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
So I didn't have per se more of this experience, but I live my life. What does it look from up there in a bigger range and bigger, perhaps different world, different language, different context? So it's from above, but without not necessarily the physical thing that I experienced is two times that you asked me about.
So it sounds like you've always been someone to challenge the status quo, whether it's in your life or in your own mind.
I don't see myself as challenging a status quo. I see it's kind of minding my own business, looking at situation from above.
Mm.
It's not for or against anybody. It just, what does it look like from up there in a more neutral, less wedded way to what we think or what we feel? A kind of neutrality of some sort, but high level of perspective,
Mm.
not
Mm.
for or against the status quo. But you're right, I've been named like that enough times in my life. But that's not what I'm seeking. Saying, what does it look like from above? What does
Mm.
it look from a higher position? What's the complexities involved beside what we feel or what we see?
Mm. Mm-hmm. Well, that's a profound takeaway. So, do you feel like these experiences have given a sense of purpose and meaning, or a message that you could share with others?
If I need to share with others, you can ask yourself the question, what does it look like from above? Not just me fighting or me in a certain situation being attacked, not being attacked. It's or being closed with, as in Gaza. Ask yourself, if I were to look at this from above, I wonder what does it look like? Not just
Mm. Mm. So thank you for sharing these incredible stories with us.
And it's a way of life in some regard.
Mm.
So like when I bump into people or I upset people, I go a little bit above and say, I believe in that. I upset them. And am I right? Am I wrong? So kind of, I do it regularly, but not in a profound ways that happen in Gaza or on the boat, but a little bit, I call it context.
Mm.
I move to context, which is like moving above. So it's a way of life for me, kind of. When I talk about ethics, what's a bigger picture? Is it ever okay to be killing a client, or what I mentioned, or being naked with a client? What's a big picture? For
Mm.
me, it's a little bit a way of life without necessarily the profound experience of seeing it from above, but moving here to ask the big questions.
And it's a conscious decision, really, isn't it?
No, I go there
We can,
with,
it might
without.
come naturally to you, but not to everyone.
No. Probably people say, what it will look like from above. You're right. Now I do it too much to some degree. But
But I mean, it's a reminder that life is full of moments where we can choose to rise above and see things
yeah,
differently from a different perspective.
exactly. Yeah, it's a different perspective. You're
To
right. So I
remain
just took
open.
profound experiences, but I live my life
Mm.
as it's kind of going to this different perspective on a regular basis.
Mm. Mm.
So it taught me what is this kind of this vision. So I do it from here, kind of looking all over, not that high.
Mm. Well, thank you so much for sharing. And thank you
Thank
to
you.
the
Wow.
listeners. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
And thank you to the listeners as well for joining us today. It's if you've enjoyed Out of Body with Dr. Zur, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with friends and someone who could use a new perspective, seeing things from a new perspective. You can find more about Dr. Zur at www.drzur.com. So until next time, be well and stay curious.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.